Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen Hebner, and I have worked with the Wayne State Math Corps in multiple capacities since 2001. It's been a long time. Currently, I'm serving as the Dean of Students for our summer camp, and I work in our in-school programs during the school year.
Hi everyone, my name is Mubashir Faruqi. So I've been with MatCore employee for 4 years now, actually. So I'm the National Expansion Manager, although currently I work part-time because I have to take care of a little one these days. So I am actually an alumnus of the program. So I was in the camp as a middle schooler and as a high schooler for 6 summers from around 2005 to 2010. So I've come full circle. I went through the camp and now I came back as an employee. And just a heads up, please forgive me for any mistakes at 7:30 here in California where I'm based. So everyone knows 7:30 is no fun, so please forgive anything. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share my screen and then let's get started. Okay, everyone. So this is MatCore. So MatCore was started in 1992 on the campus of Wayne State University by two mathematicians who wanted to do something for the kids in their community. And because they were mathematicians, they were like, oh, well, let's just teach them math because that's what they were good at. And from there, we have grown to be a nationally recognized organization. We are in our 33rd year now. We have 11 campsites operating in 6 states. So it's been a lot of growth in these last few years. And it's all due to the work that MatCore has been doing consistently over this time. So our mission at MatCore is to empower and inspire children from underserved communities through the teaching of mathematics and the fostering, moving these tabs of self-worth, strong values, and a sense of family to build good lives for themselves and a more just society for all. We are a very mission-driven organization, and we have all of our staff strongly believe in this mission, and it's a big part of what we do. So let me tell you something that makes us kind of unique in this in our out of school programming space. So MatCore has a unique philosophy that's been developed over the past 30 years, and it ultimately comes down to everything begins with loving and believing in kids. And let me tell you a little bit more about what this means because we've defined it so that everyone can understand. So loving kids in the MatCore means that we see them in some real way as our kids. And so everyone you'll see in the camp, all of the staff never say students. They say them our kids because we really feel that way. We have a high sense of responsibility. We take care of them from the moment they enter our camp. And when you love kids, that means you're part of the second family that we try to provide them. That means that they are always safe, that they get a good breakfast, something that's healthy, but also that they want to eat. They always get a smile. So making the kids feel very welcome in the space. We always put our kids first, and I'll get more into that later. But everything in our program is designed with, well, if you love and believe in kids, what does that look like? What does it look like in terms of the food you serve? What does it look like in terms of how you plan out your program schedule? Love understand this. Everyone is a very complex being. We have lots of emotions, and kids do too, and we don't want them to ever feel like their emotions are invalid. So we share in all of it, and we appreciate them for sharing these things with us. At MatCore, we want good things for all of our kids, and we want to help them achieve that. So yes, at MatCore, we do teach math, but we also want to teach them values that we think are important for them to achieve their dreams and hopes. We want them to be resilient. We want them to be strong. We want them to have integrity. And so all of these values are baked into our program so that we can build good human beings who go on to do amazing things. And loving kids in the MatCore also means being happy just to see them. We want our kids to be happy with who they are. We want them to feel like they don't have to change who they are. So it's not inauthentic. Every single staff member is very happy to see our kids, and it's very contagious. And the kids are happy. They're happy to see each other. They're happy to see the staff, and so it builds a very nice environment. Some say, like we have a visitors day every year, that the love is palpable in the MatCore, and it comes down to all of these things. And so that's what loving kids means. But what is believing in kids? So we believe that every child has a unique and special greatness within them. And so we view our main work as how do we help these kids understand and realize and find their greatness? What can we do to support them? And so all summer long, we try to get the kids to realize that they're capable of doing something amazing, and it's all within them. It's not coming from anywhere else. And so how do you do that? And so Kristen will talk a little bit more about how our program is structured. Another thing you have to believe if you work at the Math Corps is that all kids are good kids. So primarily we work with students from inner city communities, and oftentimes they get labeled because of the school they're at that, oh, they're a bad kid, or oh, the kids at this school are bad, and they're not. But sometimes when you hear these words, you hear these labels, you start to believe it, and we don't have that at Math Corps. No, we think all kids are good kids. Yes, sometimes they do bad things. Everyone does, adults too. But inherently, we believe that all kids are good kids. And so by treating kids in this way, they believe it, and so they remove these labels from themselves. We also believe that all kids have the capacity to grow both in character and mind, and that's something we do at Math Corps. So in terms of character, we teach them the values that we think are important in life: resilience, integrity, courage, confidence. But also education is important, right? You need math in all sorts of parts of your lives, right? And it also helps develop your critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. So we teach that because that's what we're experts at as well. So all of these things uh, comes down, we have 20 principles at Math Corps. They kind of inform how we love and believe in kids. And so this all builds into our unique philosophy. So I'll just go through a few of these because 20 is a lot and we only have an hour. So let's see. Uh, Principle number 5, celebrate diversity and ensure that no child is ever excluded or made to feel out of place, and that every child's own unique identity, history, and background is honored and valued. I can talk about this personally. So when I attended Math Corps in 2005 as a seventh grader, I remember the camp was about, let's say, 98% African American, which is what my school looked like. So I was one of a few kids in the whole school who looked different. I used to wear a hijab back then, and I used to always be very shy. I wouldn't speak up. I used to be like, oh, let me just hide myself because I don't feel confident in who I am. And so I remember at Math Corps, excuse me, that even my name is long and I would shorten it so that people would say it correctly. I would make sure that, oh, you said it wrong, who cares? It doesn't matter. Just forget and keep going. And so these are things I no longer do anymore. I make sure that, oh, I am Mubashir Faruqi. I don't know why I'm getting emotional this morning. Um, and it's something I still carry with me today. Um, when you go for a long time feeling, oh my goodness, guys, 7:30, okay, that, oh, you have to hide yourself, right? You don't want to be who you are. You want to be overlooked. And so Math Corps helped me over the summers build confidence in who I am and my thoughts, my feelings, my belief. And it's been very powerful. And so we do that for every kid in our program. We want them, no matter where they are, where they come from, to feel that they belong. And the world is a better place with our kids in it. And it's better with everyone in it. And so we celebrate diversity in every form. And it's a great principle that we believe in, and it's very helpful. Another principle let me talk about. Uh, okay, principle number 12. Only the best from our kids, high standards and high expectations. And so some might think our camp rules are a bit rigid. So we have a no lateness policy. You have to turn in your homework every day. We believe in our kids, right? We believe they have the capacity to meet our standards. So our camp for middle schoolers starts at 9:30 a.m., not 9:31. I'm sorry. You're here at 9:31. You have to wait. All these kids are here on time. We're going to start with them. Our high schoolers have to be here at 9 a.m. for a morning meeting. If they get here at 9:01, oh, they're going to go see Kristen, our dean. Why are you here at 9:01? Your job started at 9 a.m. today. And so 1, 2, 3 latenesses, you're out of the program. And some think, oh, that's very severe. The kids got there basically on time. And we think, no, we believe our kids can get there on time and be ready to start, not just, oh, we're getting stuff out of our backpack now. No, you're in your seat, you're ready. And we have about 240 kids in our summer camp. 98% will make it through the whole summer, because when you tell kids that they can do something, they believe it and then they do it. We tell the parents at orientation, this is not the kind of camp where you can come late. You'll be here a few days and not here, and it'll be fine. No, this is not the summer for you. This is not the camp for you. We have a big job at the Math Corps, and it's to help kids find their greatness. It's to help kids learn a lot of mathematics, and we need them here on time. And when you have this expectation for your kids and it's very strong, the kids, you'll be surprised, meet it all the time. And so we have about a 98% attendance rate daily. Our kids finish the camp every year and they get homework every night, and following day every single kid brings their homework in, and it's because of this principle and how we love and believe in our kids that the kids continuously do it. Another principle, 13, regularly recognize and celebrate achievement and good acts. So one unique thing about the Math Corps is, yes, every kid does their homework at night and it gets checked, and the next day, every kid who got 100 on it, his name is read aloud. And when the whole team gets 100 on their homework, they all stand up, they get applauded, and it's a thing we celebrate every day, the homework scores, right? Oftentimes in schools, small acts of achievement aren't celebrated. And so kids really look forward to, oh, I want to do well in my homework. I want my name to be read aloud. I want my whole team to be celebrated at assembly. And one thing that kind of is interesting at the Math Corps is, so we have grades, 7s, 8s, 9s. They kind of compete. Which grade can get the most 100% on the homework? And this is not something you see in school. So the kids, let's say the 7s got 38 of 40, 100% on their homework. Everyone, like, they win for the day. And so you have this unique culture where there's like peer pressure to achieve upward, and that's very unique. And so our kids work hard to do well so that they can be recognized. And so we celebrate all of those things so that the kids feel excited and happy, and they want to continue to participate and do well. Uh, Another principle, number 19, provide a lifetime membership to every child who enters, guaranteeing direct support through every year of middle school and high school. So our camp, we do a lot every summer, but some of the things you have to build on year after year. And so we work with middle schoolers. They come back as high schoolers to teach the middle schoolers. They can even come back as college kids to teach the high schoolers, the middle schoolers. And so when you have the kids coming back year after year, each time they're building in responsibility, their growth is increasing. It really helps give us the ability to really help them find their greatness, to achieve well, to do great things in their life. And so all of these things, all of our principles, they really inform our values. So as you can see, I listed like resilience, integrity earlier, but there's a lot of other things. Kindness is a big part of the Math Corps. We treat every kid with kindness. We have our children treat each other with kindness because the world could use more kindness. So that's a really big part of the Math Corps. We want every kid to feel like it's part of a second family. Like, you have your family at home, but at Math Corps, you're part of a family too. And that family keep coming back to year after year. In 30 years, we have an alumni organization now, and some of the participants still are active in this. And so they're always a part of the Math Corps. And so even if, like, let's say you're here one summer and you couldn't make it another summer, we welcome you back again in the future because we are a family. Mathematics, I know I didn't talk about that much, but it's really a big part of what we do. We teach our kids a ton of mathematics. Love and believing in kids. And so our values come from our philosophy, and it's something that makes Math Corps as a program very unique, because when you think about a summer camp, you don't think, oh man, like, they do all this other stuff. But really, when you ask a kid, what does the Math Corps mean? Math is probably the smallest thing. Like when I told you about my experience, I didn't mention math. Yeah, I did learn a ton of math here, but you remember all these other things. And so I'll give you a brief overview because I mentioned a little bit about our summer camp. So in Detroit, we operate 2 summer camps. They are about 240 students each. So we have 7th graders, 8th graders, 9th graders, and they're taught by high schoolers. So you grow as you come through the program. And then we have college kids leading. And then we have senior staff, often professors, teachers who work here for the summer. And as Kristen said, she's been here since 2001, right? Like, our staff, our long-term staff, our kids come back year after year. And oftentimes our kids grow up and become the staff of the program. So it's this really cool organization where everyone knows every level because they've kind of gone through it. And we teach math in 2 ways. So every kid learns the basics, which is the stuff that's grade level appropriate. So if you're in seventh grade, you're learning seventh grade math. But also, because you're on a college campus, we have these cool professors. Let's teach you something else cool that you thought you couldn't do. So each kid also has a discovery course, which we call ice cream, and they learn something that's very college level, infinite series, how to do some calculus, fractals, things they would never see at school. And one of the reasons why we do this is you thought this is some type of math you could never do. Hey, look, you learned it this summer. What else have you thought about in your life that you thought you couldn't do that you can? And so we use math to kind of teach that to our kids. And so we have huge dramatic results every year. So on average, our kids, so when they enter the program, they take a pre-test so we can gauge where they're at. And at the end of the summer, they take a similar test to see how much they've learned. And on average, they come in with about 30%. And at the end of the summer, they're over 90% usually. And so they learn everything they need to in these few short weeks. And so they go back to the next grade and they're very prepared to do very well. And our high school graduation rate at math core is over 95%. And of those graduates, 90% of them then go on to college. So we've essentially developed a really strong middle school to college pipeline where kids come to us in middle school and they end up going to college and graduating college. And so that's pretty amazing. And one thing I'll end with for my portion is, so Leonard Bohm is one of our founders, and he says, our students are treasures loaned to us by their families. We need to at all times cherish them. And this quote is written on a document we call the Heart of the Math Corps, and you can find this on our website. And it talks about how we treat students at the Math Corps. And Kristen's kind of going to go into, well, if our kids are so precious to us, how do you treat them? How do you keep them safe? And so, Kristen, I'll let you go on from here.
Thank you. So Mobashira went into our principles and she said just 3 random ones, but they were 3 of some of the most important ones I think that we have. And I don't know if you noticed this, but when she showed you the slide that had the individual words on it, mathematics is at the bottom, and that is by design. So we're using math, like Mobashira said, as a vehicle to love and believe in kids. And so in order to love and believe in kids, we better be keeping them safe. So at our camp, we are on Wayne State's campus. And so as you know, this is an open campus, or you might not know, but you don't know. Wayne State's an open campus. It's right in the heart of Midtown Detroit. It's beautiful, and that poses some safety concerns as well. So one thing for us is that we have to walk throughout the day from building to building. We are located in one building to have sort of like the main part of our day. And then we walk to another building to have our assembly. And then we walk to another building to have lunch. And so for all of that to happen safely, we need to break that down bit by bit to make sure that our kids are safe during each part of those transitions. So when we're crossing major streets, we make sure that we are breaking kids into really small groups, 5 or 6 kids to 1 adult, to make sure that the adult can keep their eyes on each individual kid. We also, the last few years, have asked for Wayne State Police to provide for us a safe crossing for some of our main roads. So we give them a call in advance, they come over, block the traffic so all of our kids can get to the building they need to get to safely with adult supervision and Wayne State's police assistance. And that has made a big difference for those of us who are, our senior staff members, making sure that our kids are safe. It sort of allows us to breathe for a second, knowing that all of that traffic is blocked for our kids. Another thing that's important to note, because we're on an open campus, is that there are classes that are happening in all of these buildings. And so we have to make sure that we're hiring enough adults that can supervise our kids, again, like I said, throughout the day. So we break each day down bit by bit and make sure that we have adults that are stationed in locations where we see, oh, this is a very high traffic area. There are a lot of college kids that are going in and out of this door. And we also make sure that we know where the very low traffic areas are and make sure that there are adults stationed there as well. So we make sure that we have our college kids, our adults, that are stationed outside of bathrooms to make sure that they can keep their eyes on who's walking into the bathroom and who is walking out of the bathroom. All of this to say that we don't hire people and just say, hey, your job today is to walk kids from building A to building B. We have an extensive training process that happens well before the camp starts to make sure that these adults, who, by the way, are mostly college kids, know what that looks like. So if you ask a 20-year-old what it means to supervise a hallway or monitor a hallway, chances are they're going to be on their phones. It's kind of a boring job because they just don't know. So we make sure during their training, which for our college kids happens over the course of 6 days before camp even starts, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like to be a safety monitor, right? It doesn't mean sitting in a chair, scrolling on your phone and occasionally looking up, but they don't necessarily know the difference. So we would go through explaining what that is, and then we actually model it as well. And for some of our college kids, when they're sitting in a training and I say, all right, everybody up, we're going to monitor, we're going to show what it looks like for you to walk kids from one building to the other. There's a little bit of like, what do you mean? I know how to walk with some kids, but it turns out that they actually don't. And as an adult myself, every year before we go through the training, I go through it myself. What is the correct ratio? What ratio makes sense for kids to an adult? What way are they going to have to walk to get to this building? There's construction that happens all the time on Wayne State's campus. Is this the safest way? Is the fastest way the safest way? Right? So if we're going to say and believe fully that our philosophy is to love and believe in kids, then we better be walking through all of these processes before the camp even starts to make sure that our kids are safe. Mubashir, can you hit the next slide, please? Thank you. So physical safety is obviously very important, making sure that kids are properly supervised. But if we're going to have kids on campus, all day, it's a full day of school, right? We have them arrive at 9:30 and they leave at 2:30. That's almost a school day. We need to be prepared for anything that could potentially come up. So one of the things that we, just like schools do, ask parents for is detailed records of their medical backgrounds. That is not shared with everyone. That's shared with just the folks who need to know. So someone like a dean and a director would have access to all of this, making sure we know what kids' allergies are, any medical conditions that they might have, so that we can make sure to keep our kids safe. This actually came up last year. I had a student on a team who wasn't feeling very well. And when I pulled up her paper, because I have both an electronic copy and a binder, whatever is easier for me to look for, there was nothing on there. And I couldn't get in touch with her mom. And it turns out, this was one of our incoming 7th graders, that she's a type 1 diabetic. And that helped a lot because I was able to, while she really wasn't feeling well, and we were trying to get in touch with her mom, I was able to ask her, get out your sugar kit, get out your blood sugar testing kit so she could test her blood sugar. We saw that it was low but not dangerous, so we were able to get her some orange juice. In the meantime, I was able to get in touch with her mom. But that's a perfect example of that was wasted time for me. If I would have been able to open that up and know, and mom just might not have thought to list it, it would have been better to have that, those wasted seconds could have been the difference between needing to call 911 or not. So those detailed records are really important. Making sure that you have fully stocked first aid kits. This is really important as well. And again, all of this is checked before we start. We have 2 sites at Wayne State and they're pretty close together. So we make sure that both of those sites are well stocked with first aid supplies. And this needs to be checked thoroughly at the beginning of camp as well. If it's not, stuff can, come up where we took our kids over to family meal and we walked them over safely because it's at a different place on campus. And all of a sudden the kid has a badly skinned knee and all I have are like the tiny little butterfly band-aids, which, has happened, and you live and learn from that. And we make sure that we check those supplies, not just at the beginning of camp, but throughout camp. Kids love band-aids. So kids are always coming into the staff room for a little bit of extra love. a little bit of alone time with maybe a staff member. Maybe they just needed a little break from the day. And Band-Aids are a really easy thing for kids to ask for. So we run out of Band-Aids all the time. So just something to keep in mind for us is that I'm forever checking the first aid kits to make sure that they're properly supplied, both at the beginning of camp and then throughout. Emergency contact information, that goes with our detailed records. But one thing that I have figured out over the years, the position that I've had as the Dean of Students, I think this is my 8th summer. Every year I find something else to check for, and emergency contacts is something that came up the last couple of years for me because we were virtual for a couple of years for COVID. And when we came back, I realized that we asked parents and guardians for contact information at the beginning before camp starts at their orientation, but I don't think it was checked. So sometimes you'll have a kid, when you pull out that emergency contact information, with only one parent on there as an emergency contact. And if that parent isn't able to answer the phone, or that guardian isn't able to answer the phone, well, now you're kind of stuck. So something that I've done the last couple of years is gone back through, scrolled through the electronic copies that we have to make sure that we have more than one, really more than 2 people that we can contact in case of an emergency with the kid. Stuff can come up that's really basic, like maybe a mom put in their records that their kid, gets frequent headaches and that they're sending ibuprofen with the kid. And so that's a really easy thing to ask an aunt, hey, can I give this kid a Motrin? But for bigger stuff, it's even more important. So that's something that I've personally been doing the last couple of years, is making sure that there's multiple contacts for kids in case of an emergency. I noted earlier that it's important to know where you're located. Wayne State has an amazing emergency, police and emergency. So we actually, if we're on Wayne State's campus, if we call 911, it's actually, we can get a slower response than if we call Wayne State's emergency number. So something like that can be really important to know as well. I noted earlier that we walk back and forth between buildings and we run most of our camp during the summer. We do have a Saturday program that's in the winter time. But during the summer, we're outside a lot, and it's really important to make sure that kids stay hydrated. Those of you who have kids or teach kids, kids will run themselves down. They will not realize that they need water, that they need a Gatorade. But if you provide it for them, especially if you provide it in the fun flavors, they're more likely to drink it. We always make sure we way over provide, because if you think, hey, I'm going to be outside for an hour and a half, I think maybe 2 per kid is enough. It's not going to be enough, because if it's available, kids are more likely to drink it. It's important to make sure that our kids stay hydrated. So we have buckets and buckets and buckets of various liquids for them to drink when we're outside. It gets hot in the city for sure. Speaking of being outside, that's something that we think about all the time as well. We're not in a building, so kids are going to be playing. They're going to want to play ball. They're going to want to run around. And there's all kinds of things that comes up throughout being outside on a campus. We're not at a park. So there's buildings that we're in between, making sure that kids aren't going to run into a window and break it, which happened years and years ago at our camp. It's kind of one of those stories that's not funny at all and gets retold. But we learned from that. And so hopefully you won't have to learn from it if you're, being aware of it prior to it happening. Being close to buildings, like I said, kids are sometimes oblivious, a lot of times oblivious to what is going on around them. And so we try to be their eyes and ears before these things happen. Our campus is beautiful and we want to make sure that it stays beautiful. But I've had more than one kid fall because they're racing on the concrete and really skinned up their hands and their knees. So I try to always monitor for what's happening outside while we're out there. So the kids are out there having fun, eating food. And those of us on senior staff are kind of eagle eyes, watching and making sure we have our eyes on all the kids, being aware of anything that could come up that could possibly be dangerous for them. Can you go to the next slide, Mubashir? Thank you. So one of the things that Mubashara said when she was talking about the different types of math that we teach, of course, all of our, we're the math corps, we teach math. It's our vehicle for loving and believing in kids. But one thing, and like I said, I've been in the program since 2001, and I've held various roles throughout. But the more time that I spend in the program, the more I see that the way that we have things set up improves engagement in our students. So our day is almost a full school day, but it is not kids sitting in a classroom with 30 or 40 kids and one teacher throughout the day. We vary the type of instruction that we give them, or that the campers get, and we vary the material that they're given throughout the day as well. We start our day in assembly, in a big assembly hall with our entire camp. That's a huge group. We then move into a more traditional classroom setting where kids get a quick 30-minute lesson from a Wayne State instructor. And then we move into small group or even one-on-one time. And that's before lunch. So all of this varying really helps kids stay engaged. After lunch, we do hands-on activities. We do an inquiry-based instruction and Socratic style instruction in our discovery courses. Mubashara called our discovery our ice cream course, which is so accurate. We like to say that kids need both things. They need broccoli and they need ice cream. So they need their grade level material and they need the stuff that's just a little further past what they could have ever imagined they could learn themselves. And all of this happens over the course of every single day. In fact, the last hour of the day is different Monday through Thursday. On Monday, they might have an art-based course. On Tuesday, at the end of the day, they have an engineering-based course. On Wednesday, they might have a writing-based course. So the variance throughout the day and throughout the week really helps kids stay excited and stay engaged. It's not like school at all. We have a lot of kids that come in, especially our 7s. I spend a lot of time pre-camp reading our kids' applications. And a lot of them in the essay that we require say, I don't know, my mom told me I should be in this program and that my sister was in it and that it's cool, but I don't know. And then when we read their exit surveys at the end, they absolutely let us know that they thought it was going to be like school. It's a math camp. That's not fun. And then they realize that it's so much more than that. And I think a big part of that comes from the way that we vary the instruction throughout the day. Next slide, please. Thank you. Another way that we vary instruction with our kids is diversifying the adults that the kids interact with. So when I said we started the day in a big assembly hall, that's our director, depending on the site that we're at. That's one person standing up at the front, going through and engaging the kids. And then they go to a class where a Wayne State instructor teaches them. And then they go to their team time where they're working one-on-one or one-on-two with a high school kid. And then after lunch, they get another Wayne State staff member teaching them their afternoon activity. So they're always interacting with different adults, and the adults aren't always, us older folks. Interacting with college kids, with their peers, really helps a lot with making connections and connecting kids to the math and to other adults in the community. We make sure that we're providing a warm and welcoming environment. And this is something that our director, Professor Khan, is so keen on making sure occurs. And like I said, the longer that I work in the program, the more I see how important it is to have a beautiful environment for kids to come into. This year, I worked during the school year at a school where that didn't always take place. There weren't always beautiful posters. The environment didn't always feel welcoming. And so this year in particular, I was reminded of how important it is to make sure that our camp has tons of posters. These are not professional posters, by the way. Our college kids make some of these posters. The senior staff make some of the posters. Our kids get involved and make some of these posters. we're not spending a ton of money getting, you know, like beautiful signage. And I think that's really important that kids can see themselves on the walls. We ask for students to provide artwork for us. I know at one of our sites, our Site 2 location does the art of the Math Corps, and they have an entire wall that is dedicated to student art. So just kids, anything that they might have doodled or anything that they might have drawn at home that they wanted to bring in and put on the wall. It's a really beautiful concept that isn't related to the work that they're doing in classes. So student work is obviously very important, but so is the other stuff that they're really interested in learning about and showing off. So we love showing off our student artwork. I've already kind of touched on this, but making sure that the subject matter that we teach throughout the day is very different. Kids are not sitting in a class for a very long time. Our longest class is 45 to 50 minutes, and that's our discovery class, which is inquiry-based or Socratic-based. So kids aren't sitting there being like talked at, you know, for 6 hours. And I think that makes a really big difference in keeping kids engaged. One thing that I didn't mention, but I think is really important, is if you're going to have all of these different ways of keeping kids engaged throughout the day, you really need to make sure that you have those transitions solidified with your staff. What do these transitions look like? What do the transitions sound like if they're moving from classroom to classroom? Because the smoother the transition, the easier it is to get them right into the next activity. And that really helps with engagement as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the first thing, or one of the first things that we give to our staff in our very first staff meeting, which is well before camp starts, 3 or 4 weeks usually, is this is our list of rules for staff, 101 rules. And this is not inclusive. This is just the first 101 things that we could think of off the top of our heads that would be really important for staff to know how to behave around our kids. You can look throughout this list and you can see things like number 7, elevate kids, making sure that kids know that they're more than who they think they are. I think a lot of time kids, and Mubashira touched on this when she was talking, kids think that they are the role that they've been assigned. The bad kid, the mischievous kid, the good kid, the quiet kid. So one thing that we try to do throughout the year, all of our staff, is make sure that we elevate kids and show them they can be so much more than just a label. Number 13, respect kids. We could talk for an entire hour about this, but at the Math Corps, we believe that everyone deserves respect, especially kids. Heal kids, hug kids. Number 34, engage kids that we've been talking about for the past few minutes. Number 58, support kids. Number 70, encourage kids. This isn't an inclusive list, but this is something that when you hand it to a staff member who hasn't been a part of the program can be a little overwhelming. We give this to our high school kids too, by the way. So our high school kids that start with us as little kids and then become teaching assistants get this list also. And it's really fun to see them look at this list and see that it's really overwhelming at first. And then as we talk through it, see that, wow, this is how I've been treated for the past few years. And now I get to do this for other kids. It's a really beautiful moment. Number 90, advise kids. Actually, let's go back up to number 88. Ask questions of kids. How many times, for those of us who are teachers, I'm sure there's a lot of folks in here who are teachers or work with kids regularly during the school year, go through the day and tell kids what to do, and instead of asking them questions about themselves. And that can be as simple as just, I'm walking down the hallway, maybe to use the restroom, maybe to grab a coffee out of the vending machine, and I see a kid walking to the bathroom, and I can stop them and ask them how their day is going. Do they need anything? Is something going on that maybe I can help with? How was their evening last night? Did they have a busy night? Are they sleepy this morning? all of those things, if you're asking them authentically, mean a lot to kids, because I think kids are really used to being in a school and just kind of being told what to do throughout the day. But all of these rules for kids are real simple when you look at them on paper, but when you really start to think about them as a whole, can really improve how we interact with kids, and therefore can build the engagement that we want from our students throughout the camp. Next slide, please. And then conversely, here's our rules for kids. We have 101 rules for adults and three rules for our kids. Be yourself, always strive to realize your own greatness, and be safe. That's it. That's all we need our kids to do. We don't have a list of classroom rules in our classroom. You might see these in the hallway, but other than that, we're assuming that our kids can do these 3 things, and therefore we can have a productive summer with them. I think it's always interesting to show folks who are brand new to our program that list for adults and then this list for kids, because I think we're used to, as educators, as folks who work with kids, to having, even if it is a limited list, to having a list of maybe like 6 or 8 rules that kids need to follow. But you could probably take each of those 6 to 8 rules and make them fit one of these 3 different things. So you can condense your list of rules for kids and know that all you're requiring of them is just to be themselves, strive to realize their greatness, and make sure that they're keeping themselves safe. Excuse my voice. Next slide, please. And that's all that we have for you. One of the things that Mobashira and I were talking with